Good evening and welcome to the Box Elder Creek Ranches Town Hall. This virtual meeting is brought to you by Arapahoe County. I am Luke Hattelstead. I am the county's Public Information Officer and I'll be the moderator tonight. Our hosts this evening are your District 3 Commissioner Jeff Baker and the Public Works and Development Director Brian Weimer and Road and Bridge Division Manager Alan Peterson. They are joined by a handful of PWD officials who are on hand to answer any esoteric or specific questions that they might be able to provide better insight to. We're going to have a full schedule. We're scheduled for an hour, but we can go for as long as you still have questions. And there are two ways to ask questions. One is if you're joining us by phone, you can dial *3. And that'll put you through to an operator who will put you in the queue for our in-person live verbal questions, which we will get to after our slideshow. If you're watching us online, you can type questions into the question box that's right there on the site. And because we're doing the slideshow, even if you're on the phone, you may want to watch online, and so you can follow along with the slides because this is pretty detailed stuff. If you want to do that, our website is at arapahoegov.com/town hall, all one word. So that's a good way to watch the slides. And in addition to that, we will be providing a recording of this on our YouTube channel within about 24 hours after the meeting. So we did get a handful of questions from some of you before the event, and we've used those to help prepare. So thank you for that. Like I said, we do have a lot of people here. This is a topic that's of interest to every one of you, or you wouldn't be here. So we want to get to your questions as quickly as possible. We will try to answer every single one. There will be a way to have your questions saved later if for some reason we can't get to them. But hopefully the slide presentation will get a lot of them answered. And if you hear your question, the one that you wanted to ask, get asked by somebody else, there's no need to ask it a second time. But if you have another one, feel free to do that. So with that, I am going to introduce you to Commissioner Jeff Baker.
Thank you, Luke. Welcome, everyone. We're glad to have this chance to talk to all of you tonight. We'll be returning to in-person public meetings very soon. But we felt that this was a better way to reach more people under the circumstances without having them drive a distance to come to an in-person meeting. So before we get started with this presentation, I wanted to stress a couple of points. First, we haven't made any final decisions yet about our plans for Box Elder Roads. Our objective in this meeting is to explain what we've been considering and to get your feedback. That's really it. Explain what we've been considering and try to get your feedback. There seems to have been maybe some miscommunication around the roads issue, and tonight we'd like to clear some of that up. We'll give some definitions of our processes that will help us to get on the same page, because I've noticed that terminology seems to differ depending on who you talk to, whether you say a paved road or a gravel road or a roto-mill road, or all these different terms for our roads. So we want to clear some of that up, just so we're on the same page. Then we'll also share what we know, what we've learned, and then we'll propose some options to you, and we want to hear your thoughts on those options. The other thing I want to mention is my main objective as your board representative is always to advocate for my constituents as effectively as I can. Now, that doesn't mean we all get what we want every single time, because there are 5 county commissioner districts and 5 commissioners in the county. And we have ongoing, very serious budgetary issues that we'll talk about tonight. But I don't want to focus on that. I want you all to know that I will always make the best decision that I can on your behalf with safety and efficiency and cost-effectiveness in mind. I'm very pleased to be sharing this information with you tonight, and I look forward to a productive discussion with everyone. Now I'll pass it back to Luke.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Before I hand it off to Brian and Alan for the slide presentation, I just want to remind you, if you're on the phone, you should and you want to ask a question, you should dial *3, and that'll put you through to an operator, and they'll put you in line to ask a question via phone. If you are watching on our website, you can just plug the question into the comments box, and we've already got a couple of those coming in. And once again, if you're on the phone and want to watch the slide presentation, our website is arapahogov.com/townhall. So with that, I'm going to hand it to PWD Director Brian Weimer.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks again, and thanks for everybody for attending. I wanted to start off a discussion and just reiterate what Commissioner Baker has said, and that is we have not made any decisions associated with it. And our intent all along was to have this public meeting to get feedback, and that was the direction that we received from the county commissioners when we brought up these issues previously at the end of last year. So if you would go to slide number 7 for those following along. We want to talk a little bit about what definitions are. So we're all talking about the same thing. And that is, first, these are different types of road rehabilitations that we provide, or maintenance options that we can provide. So one of them is road preservation. And on that side is patching, let it be hot patching or cold mix patching. And what it's used for is fixing weak or failed areas. So if you have a alligator area, you may have rutting in the road, that's what we use patching for. Then next significant type of treatment would be a surface treatment. Surface treatments don't really provide any structural benefit, but what they do is they surface seal the surface or keep the roadway from oxidizing. Those are the harmful effects that can cause roadways to crack, to dry out, to ravel, and that's why we use a surface treatment. An example of that would be a chip seal, and you've seen those. Other examples might be a fog seal, where it's a spray of asphalt over the liquid asphalt over the roadway. It does provide some years of life, usually in the maybe 3 to 5 years, depending on the type of surface treatment that you provide. The next type of significant roadway maintenance activity that we have is an overlay or a resurfacing. And what that is replacement of new asphalt over existing pavement. So you'll see driving around town where it may be milled, the existing asphalt is taken down a couple of inches, and then brand new hot mix is put over the top. That's what we call an overlay or resurfacing. And then the most extreme type of roadway rehabilitation that we provide is a roadway reconstruct. That is a total rebuild of the roadway. All the asphalt is removed. A lot of times the subgrade is saturated, so it doesn't have any carrying capabilities, and we have to stabilize that subgrade with a chemical to let it be lime, cement treatment, or whatever to give it back strength to carry the asphalt. And then we put the new asphalt on top of that. All of these definitions really apply to a hot mix paved roadway. Roadways that had a hot mix placed on them initially, and those are the type of treatments that we provide. If you can go to slide 8, please. Now within slide 8 is maybe what's more applicable for these roadways that didn't have a hot placed asphalt on them. And they had a rotopave. And a rotopave was a road surface treatment where recycled millings is spread on top of existing gravel roads or existing subgrade. It's compacted, most likely sprayed with a rejuvenating oil that gives the oxidized characteristics of the millings a little more I'll be honest, sticky back into them to help them bind together. It may look like asphalt, but it's only about 2/3 to half the strength of a asphalt roadway. So it doesn't have the same load carrying capabilities or capacity than a regular pavement would have. And we have to maintain it like pavement. The next is what you've heard a lot of discussion about, is that's the Arapa blend treatment that we provide. And that treatment is 2 parts asphalt millings to 1 part gravel/clay mixture. And what that's doing is helping it bind together. Looks a lot like a gravel roadway, but is less maintenance. There's less blading necessary, dust control, those sorts of things associated with it. It is stronger than a gravel roadway, and we've had good luck with it in the past. Millings, talked a little bit about what those are, and those millings come from rehabilitation of asphalt roads where they are ground up, and we get those either through our own maintenance activities where we're doing overlays, or a lot of times through the state where they're doing activities, and we get those recycled millings. We do right now put them through a mill to get them to a uniform gradation, so we crush them, and you won't see big chunks in it. It's more of a uniform material. Last is a chip seal, and that is a layer of oil spread down, liquidized oil, if you will. It's has water in it, and it helps break after a period of time and sets up. But with that oil, then a 3/4 inch rock is put on top of it, and that helps seal cracks, smooths the surface, keeps the asphalt from oxidizing and losing the stickiness out of it. There has been some discussion of a hot cap, and we really don't use that term, but we did mention that in this slide. So in this presentation, you're not going to hear anything really about a hot cap. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alan to talk about slide 9.
Great, thank you, Brian, and good evening, Box Elder residents. Wish we were meeting face-to-face here, but bear with me, if you will. Some of this may seem a little redundant. You may have heard this before. But as you know, Box Elder is a beautiful subdivision in the eastern part of the county. It was actually approved as a development in 1978. And at that time of approval, the county actually did not maintain roadways unless they met regulations in place at that time. The county did accept gravel roads for maintenance thereafter. However, in 1986, the county decided that it would no longer accept unpaved public roadways for maintenance. So I think that's important to note. Next slide, please. So as you know, there are 116 lots in Box Elder Estates. 116 of them, about approximately 5 acres, give or take a little. There's about 5 miles of roadway network that go through your neighborhood. The original gravel roads were actually resurfaced in 1997 using a rotomill process, and Brian explained that process to you. It's kind of evolved through the late 90s into the mid 2000s. But Road and Bridge received these millings from a CDOT project that was actually going on I-70 at the time, and Road and Bridge accepted those millings and placed them on the roads through your neighborhood using a motor grader. Later on, as the process kind of evolved, the millings were then screened and later run through our paving machine, just like you would run hot mix asphalt through those. Extremely hard on a paving machine to run that dry aggregate through our paving machine. Then after those millings were placed with the grader, a chip seal was placed on top of those millings. Sometime later, I think the slide says a few years later, I actually don't think it was that long. I think it was maybe months, 6 months, maybe possibly a year. I'm not exactly sure, and haven't seen the records that go back in detail that far. But then in 1999, for whatever reason, and here's that hot mix cap that we said we don't use, for whatever reason that I can't explain, there are about 1.5 miles of roadways through Box Elder that have actually been paved with hot mix asphalt. And that's primarily about half of Arizona, and also Indian Field is primarily where that hot mix cap is. I suspect that was done to reinforce areas of the road that had failed prematurely. But as we all know and can see, the road surface has completely deteriorated. It should have really never gotten to this condition, but now is the time to work on this road. Let's see, next slide, please, Luke. Oh, I believe this is your slide, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. First thing off, we hear a lot about, or we've heard that we're trying to raise taxes. That is not the case. We are educating about where the taxes go. We're not indicating if they are too high or too low. Those are value statements that you, the voters, make in terms of where the tax dollars are spent and how your taxes are allocated. And so from that perspective, we're providing this information. So the road and bridge budget has remained flat for more than 20 years. Right now, the 2021 budget for road and bridge is about $17 million. Actually, it's $16.7 million. And that budget is made up of property taxes, which is about 42% of the total budget, highway users transportation funds, which is your gas tax currently, and other fees at 54%. And then we've used about 4% of fund balance that we have associated with the Road and Bridge Fund. Road and Bridge maintains roads. They provide maintenance on bridges, other transportation assets such as guardrail, street signs, weed mowing, those sorts of things in unincorporated Arapahoe County only. There's about 380 centerline paved miles and about 175 miles of gravel roads to maintain that we're dealing with within Arapahoe County. And right now, we just don't have the budget to provide a hot mix asphalt within this subdivision. So reconstructing it and putting in something that you might see within the western portion of the county, we just don't have the funding to do that. And you'll see further on in the presentation that was about $4.5 to $5 million to provide that for the mileage within Box Elder. Next slide, please. So the question comes up as to, while I'm paying these taxes, the average within Box Elder for the assessments that are being done right now is between $1,800 and $2,100. That's the total taxes paid. The next slide will talk about where that is allocated. For a particular individual project or property within Box Elder, between $15 and $17 goes to Road and Bridge on an annual basis. That's how much we receive out of the $1,800 to $2,100 that is paid by you property owners within Box Elder. The assessed value for all of Box Elder, so every parcel out there, is about $4.35 million, and that equates to a total property tax to Road and Bridge on an annual basis of $2,000. So that's how much we receive from the Box Elder subdivision. Next slide, please. So on this slide, what we're doing is we're showing that full assessed value of $4.3 million, and then how that is broken down into where it's going. So Arapahoe County, as the county, receives $52,000 of that, or about 19.5% of the total. Our mill levy for Arapahoe County is 12 mills. The overall total mill levy that is paid within Box Elder is 61.3 mills. So on top of that, or out of that, would be law enforcement, paying about $21,600. The library district receiving $25,000 with a mill levy of 5.81. Bennett Fire has a mill levy of 13.07 or $56,000. Bennett School, and this isn't surprising throughout the entire county. School districts have usually the highest mill levy, and they receive $97,000, almost $98,000 from Bennett Schools from your taxes. Lost Creek Water District is 0.945, and then you have urban drainage. You had two from there, a 0.9 and a 0.1 mill levy, and you can see the dollar amounts associated with that. Of the Road and Bridge, the share, we are less than 1% of the total taxes paid, and our mill levy is 0.479. So that's just an education component. We did look at a particular property in your neighborhood. The home value was $490,000. The assessed value of that home was $35,000. It had a total tax of $2,151 with a Road and Bridge share of $16.81 coming to Road and Bridge, and that's what we would utilize for funding from the property tax side of things. So that's just for education, and although the county receives and is responsible for collecting those dollars from the various taxing entities, we only keep the Arapahoe County share, the law enforcement share, those sorts of things. And the rest of it goes to those particular districts or entities with that. So that's the education on taxes and where they're going. And we've been asked that, or I've been asked that by several of the homeowners, so, and provided this information to them. So I wanted to share it with the entire group. So the next slide, please, is slide 14 for those of you following along.
Yeah, I think that one's mine, Brian.
That's correct.
Okay, so we've been talking about the road conditions in Box Elder for a number of years now. The county is working to identify a number of options. So nothing is on the table and nothing is off the table. We're trying to figure out the best way to go about making road improvements. So I want to reiterate again, no decisions have been made. Although we've talked about numerous possible solutions. So the options ranged from paving at a cost of $4 to $5 million, or resurfacing by other means. And then we've also talked about our RAPA blend. We'll talk more about that too at a cost of just under $400,000. So Road and Bridge again went to the board in 2002 in October and presented a number of options that we felt were perhaps viable. The board agreed that a RAPA blend would be the best option at the time, but also encouraged us to reach out to Box Elder residents. So I know there's been lots of talk and lots of rumors, and I've received numerous email and phone calls. I think I've talked to many of you, so I wanted to try and reiterate that, again, although a RAPA blend rose to the top of the list, it's not a done deal. The surface, as many of you probably know, it appears rather like gravel, but it performs much differently and much better, in my opinion. So the roads in Box Elder are in such sad shape now that patching the way we have been with cold patch, temporary type fixes it's just not sustainable, and it's not a good way to have a good way to repair your roads. So slide 15, please. So a little more about a RAPA blend. Unlike traditional gravel road, this process provides really a uniform surface, and it has some structural components to it as well. Once the roads are resurfaced, the road will require routine grading. I estimate probably once a month, which is similar to our gravel roads, although I'm hoping that it wouldn't require that much. It kind of depends on weather conditions, the amount of moisture we have. But generally speaking, it would be once a month. A RAPA blend would have a longer lifespan than traditional gravel roads that need to be replaced every 8 to 10 years. Most of the gravel roads are built from aggregate taken from local quarries, and it's a pretty soft granite material. So after a few years, we say 8 to 10 years of heavy traffic on these gravel roads, it just pulverizes the aggregate until you have a consistency that I compare it to flour, cooking flour almost. And then you get a little moisture on top of that, and as you've probably seen, a number of roads just turn to mud. So Road and Bridge is looking at another similar option to a RAPA blend because of the email and some of the feedback that we've gotten from residents. I've been asked, why don't we just keep what we have, keep the roads the same as they are. So here's another option as a response to your concerns that we've heard. I'll get into that in the next slide, but improvements are targeted for next year. Of course, I never make any promises regarding any type of roadway resurfacing until I see the approved, adopted budget later in December. That's exactly why we don't post our resurfacing list online. So next slide. So again, we've heard you. We are listening to you. We do care. Believe me, I want Box Elder to have among the nicest roads of any county in the state. What we're talking about doing now is reclaiming the roadway, but leave the existing millings that were placed back in 1997. Use that existing aggregate, albeit it's worn out, dried out. It's not quite that flour consistency yet. It's still good aggregate. What we're talking about is reclaiming, turning over that existing millings, and then adding additional screened millings if we needed to. So as we're reclaiming the roadway, should we happen to start bringing that original gravel material through that we don't want to introduce into the millings, that's when we would add loads of fresh screened black millings to the roadway. Now, compacting this is really going to be key to success, I believe. Although we haven't done this process on a roto-paved constructed roadway, I feel pretty confident that this will work if we closely monitor moisture content, add millings when we need to, and most importantly for you to know is that this is not the Arapa blend that you've seen maybe on County Road 50 or in a number of other areas throughout the county. So these would be straight screened asphalt millings. Secondly, this is something we haven't even proposed to the board yet. We introduced Commissioner Baker to the idea, but we have not gone any further than that. So the next slide. Oh, or is that is the next slide? Thank you. So from what we can tell so far, and fortunately the subgrade throughout Box Elder seems to be pretty sound. It seems to be pretty structural. Unlike many other roads that we're seeing that were constructed using this same rotopave method in the late 90s to mid 2000s, some of these other subdivisions, some of the other roads that we were seeing, the moisture is coming up through the road. So it almost looks like a mud bog. So this is a problem that we're having with roads that were constructed that way, 25 some years ago. So again, while we're introducing millings and mulching or grinding this existing surface, we've got to really carefully monitor the density. And as we're doing that, we would propose to apply a stabilizing, a binding agent. This is something that would sort of glue those asphalt chunks of aggregate together, if you will. So after that, I would have our best blade hands on the roads. We would make sure we have proper crown in the road, improve drainage to the extent possible. And then I would like to keep an eye on it. And I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know if that means a week, a month, a winter season. I think we would know relatively early if we're going to have problems with that millinged surface with an oil regenerative kind of additive to that. So if it holds up, great. That's a success, but not guaranteed neither. So it'll be important to continue checking densities, monitor traffic conditions, etc. The life expectancy of this milling surface, I don't know. It will certainly be more expensive to maintain than our traditional Arapa blend that we have on so many other rural roads. Although there should be, I would expect to see some cost savings as we wouldn't be hauling in quite as much material. I wouldn't expect to be hauling in too much unless, like I said, that reclaimer got into dirt, and then we'd want to mitigate that as soon as possible. Of course, the liquid additive, it's a product that we're still exploring. I don't have an exact cost or quote on that. We haven't gotten that far. Wanted to certainly answer your questions tonight and then have another discussion with the entire board before decisions are made. One thing is, it's certainly much, much less expensive than a traditional overlay that Brian described earlier on in the presentation. And again, there is maintenance to this new surface as well. So, Brian, if you want to summarize the next slide.
Yeah, and thanks, Alan, and thanks for that description. One other thing that I will add is, Alan mentioned the need to potentially add millings, and that was, if we run into subgrade, that sort of thing. I think that would be a function of what's the existing depth of millings that we have, and is that going to be adequate? And that's part of the subgrade and thickness testing that we're using at Geotech to take a look at. And that would be the other area that we would have to certainly look at adding millings to bring it up to a standard that would be adequate. So moving forward, kind of our steps or our next steps, if you will, get your feedback, answer your questions based on what you've heard tonight. Like I mentioned, we are doing some geotechnical testing, verifying what the subgrade looks like. We do think it's pretty good condition. Doesn't appear to be saturated, but that will be one of the things that we'll look at. Saturated soil is not good for roadways. But we'll be evaluating that, and as well as the thickness of the millings that we have out there, and making some estimate as to what we would have to provide in terms of millings. We would then present all this information to the board and ask for direction on moving forward. As Alan mentioned, we would like to do something next year, pending budget approval, of course, but that would be our proposal moving forward and the next steps that we will be taking. So with that, that summarizes our presentation right now and the new alternative that we came up from a lot of the input that we received, both Alan and myself, and that's how we came up with that alternative. So we did hear you that, hey, why don't you keep what we have out here? And I think that is certainly a viable option, and that's why we presented it tonight. So with that, Luke, back to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Just to remind everybody, if you're on the phone, want to ask a question verbally, just dial *3 and you'll be put through to an operator. And if you're on our website, you can put a comment into the comments, a question into the comments box, which a number of you have done already. There are some repeats here. I'm going to try and, combine these when it seems effective to do so. I want to start because there was a lot of talk with this about the relative sliver of tax money that the Road and Bridge Department gets, and in fact that really the county gets, because we have to share it with so many other entities. I want to ask Commissioner Baker, can you talk a little bit about, how tricky it is to get our budget in order? And I think there might be an impression out there that we're rolling in dough when in fact that's not the case at all. Could you talk a little bit about how the commissioners and how the board addresses our tax revenue?
Sure, I sure can, Luke. Thank you. Yeah, I've been reading some of the questions that have been coming in on online, and I agree that there's kind of a tone that Arapahoe County has all the money in the world to fix roads. I just want to remind folks, folks that live out in the eastern part of the county know that our county is very long. It's 70-some miles, 72 miles east to west, and it has both urban and rural. And the money that we get, we try to address the worst of the worst first, and that's been serving us for a long time. That's what we've been doing. Even the previous board, previous boards of county commissioners, we're required to have a Tabor reserve, a certain amount of Tabor reserve. Now, we go above and beyond that because we know we have to be saving up for a rainy day. And we do keep a certain amount of reserve, but it is by no means a treasure trove that we can go into. There have been a couple of things that happened since the October meeting. One, the state did pass Senate Bill 260, or was it House Bill 260? I can't remember. Senate Bill 260, and that is the state's effort to try to fix our blank roads. We have been hounding, I think the public has been hounding our state representatives to fix the roads, find some way to fix the roads. And in the past, they've put forward a lot of different tax measures that have always been defeated by the voters. And I am a very big Tabor proponent. I believe Tabor is the right way to go. We cannot incur debt without a vote of the people. We cannot borrow to fix our roads, and it isn't a good practice to borrow to fix our roads. And previous boards, at least since 1988, have not done that. So I know I'm going on here, but we're not awash in money. There are a lot of financial considerations that we have to take into account. The splitting of the 18th Judicial District into two, Tri-County Health Department, Douglas County exiting that will increase our costs for those sorts of things. There are a lot of pending budgetary concerns on the minds of county commissioners. Hopefully that will answer some of those questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. And follow up to Brian, can you talk a little bit about the highway users tax funds and how those work? We have a couple questions about that, whether we're getting a higher allocation in the rural areas and so forth.
Okay, so first of all, HUTF is the gas tax that you are currently paying at the pump, and the way it's broken out is essentially the state receives 60% of those dollars. That's CDOT. The counties receive 22% of the overall tax dollars, and then cities receive 18%. So that's where those dollars are allocated. There are 3 tiers for the county, and those tiers are established in the state statute for this. So the first $69.7 million, or portions thereof, are allocated to each county receiving the same allocation that it received in 1987 through 88. What that equates to for Arapahoe County is $2.341 million. Then there's Tier 2. Tier 2 is the next $17 million, or any portion thereof, and those are allocated following 17 counties. So it includes Adams, Alamosa, Arapahoe, Boulder, Douglas, El Paso, Jefferson, so on and so forth. And Arapahoe County receives 12.65% of that, or $2.151 million. Final tier is Tier 3, and that tier is anything in excess of $86.7 million, and that's what the previous 2 tiers total is allocated to those counties based on 4 basic factors. The first factor, being 15%, was rural vehicle registration, and the county in 2021 is estimated to receive about $62,000 based off of that. And let me back up. Tier 3, the county is estimated in 2021 to receive $4.1 million. The next allocation is 15% of countywide vehicle registration. So it's based on the vehicle registration that we have in the county. Overall, includes passenger vehicles, trucks, truck tractors, motorcycles, all the registrations that go associated with it. The next would be based on lane miles. So how many lane miles do we have? And that is a 10-foot wide lane for a mile would be 1 lane mile. And that's based on 60% is the allocation of that. And then finally, bridge decks, and that is a 10% allocation. So those are what bridges do we have greater than 20 feet in length. So that's about 10%. As we know with COVID, driving has decreased, right? And therefore HUTF allocations had decreased. So in 2020, prior to the pandemic, we were earmarked to receive about $9.1 million of HUTF dollars that would go directly into Road and Bridge. We actually received $8.3 million. This year, we have increased our estimate to 8.6, so it's still below pre-pandemic rates or amounts, but we have increased it. It has been running a little bit behind, but we're anticipating a pickup as we move forward with people getting back to work, the summer and vacations, and more driving occurring. That would help allocate that. Commissioner Baker did talk about Senate Bill 260, and with Senate Bill 260, those dollars that are estimated coming from that bill, and that bill, what it did is it allocated a 2% fee on every gallon of gas starting in fiscal year 2022, and then going up each year after to by 1 cent to a maximum of 8 cents per gallon. It also established fees that go into HUTF for passenger ride services, such as Uber and Lyft. It would be also delivery fees, and those delivery fees would be 27 cents for delivery. So the Amazons, or you buy your refrigerator from Home Depot and it's delivered, or you're building a deck, there would be a fee associated with that. And then that is given to the HUTF fund. Those HUTF dollars are then distributed based on Tier 3 allocation. It would not be Tier 1 and Tier 2. Right now, of the total county in the state, we receive about 3.6% of the overall Tier 3 available dollars. So that's how much the county would receive. So a lot of information, a lot of detail, I know, but that's how HUTF works.
All right. Thank you, Brian. And I have a sort of a follow-up to that. I think we're going to bring in Caitlin Cahill from our PWD department for this one. A couple people have noted online here in the questions that there seems to be some families that have moved into the area that operate 18-wheeler or large vehicles, heavy vehicles, as part of a commercial operation, and they're wondering how that affects the roads and how our zoning practices are addressing this condition.
Yeah, hi Luke, and hi everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate being a part of the hearing tonight, and I really appreciate these questions. I can tell you that we have been enforcing on some zoning concerns in the neighborhood in Box Elder Creek, and there's not a whole lot of compliance and cooperation right now, unfortunately. So we do enforce on zoning violations in the neighborhood, and we currently have a few open cases involving illegally operated home-based businesses, as we would call them, but more specific to trucking or towing operations or taking care of and maintenance of vehicles. So with that being said, there have been properties previously in violation that we as staff believe to be in compliance at this point in time, and that may not necessarily be the case for what people are seeing out in the community. So we do currently have over 100 open zoning violations being worked on throughout the county between 2 staff members. And this makes proactive enforcement and following up after we believe that a violation has been resolved, it makes it really challenging to continually follow up. So ultimately, we do need assistance and reports from those in the community. So if you believe that someone's in violation, either for the first time or they're, falling back on their ways and they're in violation again, we encourage you to contact our office and file a complaint. We will investigate the situation. We try to work with the owners, which does take some time. And then ultimately, if we can't get compliance voluntarily, we do have to coordinate with our county attorney's office and take the necessary civil legal action. So it does take a little bit of time, but inevitably, even though it's a very lengthy process, this is a concern throughout the community and several other small rural residential communities out in that area. We want to get it addressed, and we need help to do so. If you want to remain anonymous when you're reporting a concern, we still encourage you to call our office because sometimes we need to get additional questions answered that we can't see when we go out there during the business day, or that by watching back and forth a lot more than we're able to be out there. So our number for zoning is 720-874-6711. And again, we would love to speak with anybody. If you have concerns, if you have questions about enforcement or questions about what constitutes a violation, we'd love to talk with you. So please give us a call and talk with staff.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin. Now I want to switch gears slightly and go to Arapablend. We have a couple of questions about that. We mentioned that, of course, in the slide presentation, and we've had a lot of questions about that just generally in the last few weeks. So Brian or Alan, have we ever done any kind of a lifestyle survey either of this area or of any area that sort of addresses what communities are used to and how a move to Arapablend might affect that? That's sort of part one. And part two is, have we changed a road from a different surface, possibly a higher grade surface, I don't know if that's the right word, but to Arapablend, and what was the result?
You want me to take that, Brian?
Yeah, if you want to start, and then I'll fill in where needed.
Okay, so the first part of the question about the lifestyle survey would be no, not to my knowledge. So I'm not aware of anything, but I may not be the right one to answer that part of the question. Have we ever applied a Arapablend to a road that was not previously gravel? No, we use that Arapablend pretty exclusively on gravel roads for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. Once that Arapablend is put down and compacted properly, it drives almost like a paved road. It's a very hard, durable surface, but yet it's still pliable enough that we can put a grader on it, still be able to maintain the road in a reasonably high level of service. I think the other part of that question was, have we upgraded or downgraded from a rotopave to an Arapablend? And we have not, although that's on the table and that's what we're discussing now. It's a much bigger problem than just 116 properties in Box Elder. This rotopave process was pretty prevalent at the time and was pretty successful, but we have not completely rebuilt a road with a Arapablend over the rotopave, but lots of candidates in mind. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. Next, I want to go to a phone question. Once again, if you are on the phone and want to ask a question, just dial *3 and you'll be put through to an operator. This one is from Jennifer, and she has a question about just the general road conditions. Jennifer, go ahead. Jennifer Chrisman, are you there? All right, not hearing that. Let's try Heather, who's also online or on the phone. Heather, are you there? No? That's okay, because we have similar questions in the online queue, and there seems to be some perception that the roads here in Box Elder are of varied quality. Some are really bad, some are not bad at all. Can you guys talk a little about why they vary so much within the development?
Yeah, some of that, Luke, is going to be speculative, because there are a couple of good paved roads in Box Elder, namely Arizona, kind of the main drag going into the neighborhood, as well as Indian Field. Those roads are in pretty good shape. Those are the ones that had that overlay, that hot cap overlay placed on them. So I would propose to the board that we not reclaim those paved sections that can still be salvaged. They do need maintenance, periodic maintenance, but if you have a pothole on Arizona, it's repaired much differently than, say, in Colorado or Florida. So there are still some good roadways and salvageable roadways in Box Elder, and I would propose leaving those as is.
Okay, and as you said, that would be something that you would present to the board whenever we do another meeting about this, a study session.
That's correct. And look, just to be really, really clear, this is a board decision. So,
right.
Yeah, but that would be my recommendation, is to continue maintaining those sections of roadway just as any other paved roadway. Now, there are some sections that have been paved for whatever reasons, short sections of roadway on Louisiana. And I think I mentioned that earlier on. I don't know why those pieces of roadway were paved. I suspect that it was the roadway prematurely failing, or perhaps the millings that were placed weren't thick enough. Recall I mentioned that those millings were originally placed in 1997 using a motor grader. So keeping a consistent depth would have been a challenge for even the best operator. So I think the jury is still out on Louisiana. While it would be nice from a maintenance perspective to have one type of surface to maintain, I don't know about Louisiana. Certainly welcome feedback, but it's kind of a maintenance headache too. If you have one little section that you're maintaining as pavement, and then I have another little section that I'm maintaining as a RAPA blend, or as we've proposed this evening, just reclaimed asphalt, which is virtually the exact same surface you have there now, minus the chip seal that was placed on it.
All right, thank you. We're going to go back to the phone lines. I think we have Jennifer back. Jennifer, are you live? Are you on with us? There you go. All right.
We just had a question on air quality. The air
Okay.
emissions coming from the particles of dust.
I think I can answer that one as well. With the rejuvenating oil that we would place as we're mixing the millings in, I think that would help incredibly with dust. And secondly, I'm not sure if the speed limits through there are 30 or 35 miles an hour, but if one was to abide by the speed limit, I don't know about your neighborhood, but I think obeying the speed limit too, as well as paying attention to the methods which we compact the surface after it's reclaimed, monitoring the moisture content. So we may have to have a water truck in there during construction. That's probably a given. But long term, there will be some dust, but not enough to raise air quality concerns.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to circle back for a second to Commissioner Baker and the tax issue. One of the questions we have is whether the county can raise the Road and Bridge mill levy and what the process for that is, and why have we not done that to this point?
Thank you, Luke. Yeah, the mill levy that's in place now was put in place before Tabor. And after Tabor, I think the county's position, I may have to ask some of the previous commissioners, but I think the county's position was that this is a state responsibility to provide the county's money for, and in fact, the state was trying to. So it didn't make sense for us to put a mill levy increase on the ballot during those years when the state had tax increases, because that's what it would be. To increase the mill levy is basically a tax increase. So we'd have to ask the voters' permission for that. Property taxes and sales taxes are two different things. Primarily, the county is funded by property taxes. We only have one county sales tax, and that's the open space sales and use tax that you may be seeing on the ballot coming up in November. Timing is everything. So sales taxes, other counties around us, both Adams County and Douglas County, they fund roads a different way with sales taxes. Here's the issue with sales taxes. Primarily the cities are funded by sales taxes. And in unincorporated Arapahoe County, we don't have many businesses that are collecting sales tax. They're primarily in the incorporated cities. So we probably, and I always thought that sales taxes would be the better way to do it, but cities have said, we'll do our own sales taxes, thank you. County, keep your hands off our sales taxes. So we haven't even considered doing that because the cities in Arapahoe County have, and we really need, for any tax increase, any mill levy increase, we would need the cities to be supportive of that. There was also a question about a budget surplus every year. Well, the thing is, we're on a fiscal calendar year, so January to December. And at the end of December, yes, there may be both. Different departments may have a budget surplus. Other departments have overexpended their budget. So it kind of works out. And then they have the first 3 months of the new year to reallocate any of that money that was previously budgeted to continue the projects that we approved in the previous year. So in that whole process, my answer to that is no, we don't have a budget surplus every year. The money is reallocated for different projects well, or for the same projects that were approved for the previous year, because as we know, many of these roadway projects or even building or infrastructure projects, IT projects, are multi-year projects. So there may be a budget surplus, but it's earmarked for a 2 or 3 year long project. So in my view, no, there's not a budget surplus every year. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to take one more phone question here. This addresses the heavy truck usage. This is Danny. Danny, you are live.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I've been out there since 1982. I've called the commissioner many times complaining about all the heavy truck traffic. You guys are letting our Box Elder Creek Ranches turn into an industrial park. It is not, it's what's going on there. It's just turned into an industrial park. With all the trucks, traffic, that's what's tearing up these side roads. I've been out there since 1982. Been there when you guys resurfaced the roads and built it, and it was great. All these truck traffic is tearing it up, and your county commissioners are not doing anything to stop it. We've had neighbors making numerous complaints all the time. Nothing's happening. Your roads would hold up if you would get this place turned back into residential and light ag, like it's zoned to be. So the commissioners and your zoning people need to get on the ball, get these people out of there. I own a business, okay? I have a shop in town, costs me, I'm forgetting about $10 million in the last 20 years. And it's cost me like $10 million in the last year. What's going on?
Sorry, Danny, there's a little feedback there. Let me bring back Caitlin Cahill to talk about the recourse you have there. She'll give you a phone number that you can call for complaints.
Well, I've been complaining and it doesn't do any good. It's like you're talking to a wall.
Hi, Danny. Thanks for sharing that information. I agree. I don't think the zoning folks feel as confident about the process either. Unfortunately, we need a little bit of peer pressure from the community at this point. I've seen communication from the neighborhood to each other that truckers are not happy they're being pushed out, and we're trying to do the right thing by the community. So we do have, like I said, we have a couple open violations and also a couple of violations that have been closed that we've recently just got complaints again that people are back to doing their business on their property, unfortunately. So if the community could work with us, and we may need some help with pictures that you see on the weekends that we don't see during the week, or we need help if you see communication on the side of a vehicle. I'll be very direct and say that these are the things we're trying to look for to provide evidence of a violation that we can take to court. And if we don't have that information, we are pretty limited. And we also have to consider our county attorney resources, because that's ultimately who we're going to utilize if we do need to go to court and take a violation in. So we're gonna try and continue to work towards compliance. We have another couple of properties or communities not too far from the Box Elder Ranches area that this is also a major issue in, and people need to realize that just because you have a 2.5 to 5 acre lot, that does not automatically mean you can run your trucking business. So we're gonna keep working on that, and if anybody has any violation complaints, they should definitely give us a call at 720-874-6711, and we'll keep working on it as best we can. And like I said, I would like to hope for a little bit more peer pressure respectfully from the community to the neighborhood, asking that this activity ceases on these properties as well.
And Caitlin, this is Commissioner Baker. Luke, is it okay if I chime in as well?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because, all the and people do complain to me, and I know I have forwarded those on to Caitlin and her crew to investigate. In my view, the issue is we only have one option. We can warn them verbally, actually two options. We warn them or take them to court. There's nothing in between that. What we need, and what I've tried to raise with the other commissioners, the other 5 commissioners, I'm one of 5, I don't make any decisions all on my own. I have to get enough support from at least 2 other commissioners so that we can get things done. What I'm proposing is that after a warning, that there be a fine that we can impose upon people for these code violations, and then, an ascending fine that gets bigger with the more violations, and that it doesn't stop when they clean up and wait for 2 months and then bring their trucks back in, because they know we have to start that whole process over again, either warning or go to court. And so what we need to do is have some more teeth to the code enforcement that would be an interim measure between just warning and going to court. So that is probably something that should have been done a long time ago.
And that's an ongoing discussion on the board?
Say that again?
That's an ongoing discussion with the board?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Related to that, we have an online question. This is for Brian. Mark is asking to talk about the investment that rural constituents make as a percentage compared to urbanized, people in the more urban part of the county. Brian, can you talk about that?
Yes, thank you, Luke. We did an evaluation, and we do this every year, but we did one for last year in terms of, and obviously we just kind of look at the road and bridge mill levy because that's what we're interested in. But we looked at all parcels east of Watkins and all parcels west of Watkins Road. We looked at the revenue that was received from those various parcels, east and west, and from a revenue perspective, 0.85% of the revenue from property taxes comes from east of Watkins Road. The remaining, or 99.15%, comes from west of Watkins Road. So that's how properties, and probably does make some sense. You have a lot more commercial that's assessed at a higher value. You have the tech center, those sorts of things. When we looked at road and bridge expenditures, the available expenditure budget after we have to share our road and bridge property taxes collected back with the cities at roughly a 50-50 split. So for every dollar we get throughout the entire county, we share back 50 cents. So the county only retains 50 cents in the road and bridge fund. With those expenditures, 65% of road and bridge was expended east of Watkins Road versus 35% west of Watkins Road. So those are how dollars are expended. And that was in 2020, and that's been pretty consistent throughout the years that we've evaluated that. So essentially 2/3 of road and bridge money is going east of Watkins Road and 1/3 is going west. So I think we are, certainly putting a lot of investment in the east, even though the property tax don't necessarily reflect the full revenue dollar amount. So hopefully that helps, talk about the expenditures and where they're going in that maybe we're subsidizing the west with the east. It's really the other way around.
All right, thank you, Brian. Speaking of values, one of a question that's popped up here a number of times online is concern, obviously, about whether any kind of a road treatment plan that we decide to use will hamper the property values in Box Elder. This is for any of you. Starting with, I guess, Brian, what are we doing to address that concern?
Well, a couple of things. So first, I talked with the assessor's office, and when the assessor does property assessment for tax purposes, they do not take into account, it's not part of their formula, is the roadway paved or unpaved. That is not something that they consider moving forward with tax assessments. So that's with those properties. In addition, I have reached out to the Realtors Association and have asked them to provide some feedback on this, and that was about a month or so ago, and I have yet to hear from them what their response is. So the last time I talked to them was about a week ago, and they were still trying to get me a response from their board. And at this point, they have not provided that. So I can't give you an answer in terms of, quote, real estate market value, but I have reached out to the Realtors Association to see what that would be. Is there an impact or not? And so that's the best I can tell you at this point.
Commissioner Baker, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Another question about among the options we've presented tonight that we have considered, and acknowledging that we have not made a final decision yet. Among the ones we've considered, are these surfaces on which you could push a stroller or ride a bike or ride a skateboard, that kind of thing, not just car traffic? Alan or Brian, can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I don't know about skateboard or roller skates. It would certainly be a good surface, a reasonable surface for a motorcycle, bicycle, a stroller. I guess I would apply the same logic that should be applied on any rural road, and that's, look both ways before you cross the street. The traffic is much different in the rural part of the county than it is in the urban setting. So it's kind of situational, but I wouldn't hesitate to ride my bike or take my kid for a walk down the shoulder of the roadway.
So the surface is adequate for that.
And that was for both the Arapahoe Blend and the reclaimed, I'll call it modified Rotopave alternative, correct, Alan?
Yeah, that's correct, and that's a good term for it, Brian.
All right. Okay. Let's see. We still have some questions online. I'm going to go to a phone question now. This is from Joan, and this is for, I believe, Commissioner Baker. Joan, you're live.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. I don't quite understand about what you were explaining about the mill levy. Basically, I thought that was just basically a tax that everyone would pay, and it's only pennies on the dollar, but it's monies that go to help in these situations to help build the roads and maintain the roads and that kind of thing. And then my second question is, how many roads have you taken back to a dirt road, and has it really affected the community, and has it affected those property values? Do you know any of those answers?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, this is Commissioner Baker. Let me kind of clarify on the sales tax. The mill levy is all property tax. So when you say pennies on the dollar, I think you're probably talking about sales tax. If I'm not correct, you can let me know. But again, property taxes are the mill levy. That's how the mill levy is established and how it is collected. It's a certain percentage of the property tax that goes to the road and bridge mill levy. So hopefully that answers your question. Again, the sales taxes, which I've always thought of as the best way to address road issues, but they do have to be shared with the cities. And again, the cities have not supported the county going out for those that mill levy. We would have to go to the voters to increase the mill levy. It would have to be a ballot issue. And traditionally, local ballot measures to increase property taxes for roadways have not been very successful. And I believe that's the reason why we haven't gone out to increase the property tax or to increase the road and bridge mill levy, is because, again, we believed that was a state function that, rather than having a patchwork quilt of different taxes from community to community to community, that it would be something best solved through the state. Now, the state has passed 21-260. I'm not a fan of fees because I believe that they are taxes and they're being collected as taxes, and I believe that it will be challenged in court. But will we turn down any money from the state if it goes through and found to be constitutional and not a violation of Bill 117, which restricted enterprise fees to under $1 million? So 260 instituted 10, 15 different enterprise fees, so they'd be under that limit established by 117. So I'm not a fan of 260 as far as the way they collect the money. I would never turn down any money that the state or the federal government. In fact, we've put in earmarks for several different projects, including the interchanges along I-70 through our federal congressional delegation. So that answers, I hope, the mill levy question. As far as what has been done in the past history about a gravel road or a paved road or a RAPA-blend road being converted to gravel, I'm going to let either Brian or Alan answer that one.
Yeah, and I think Alan already answered that, and the answer is no, we have not currently converted a rotopave or other roads to a RAPA blend mixture at this point. And I want everybody to remember we have proposed another alternative, and that is kind of the modified rotopave that you currently have, as Alan talked about. So.
All right. Well, we're coming up on 90 minutes here. Some of these questions, there are a few remaining questions, but some of them are going to require us to do some more research because they're more like historical questions about past expenditures and things like that. We are going to need a little time to get to those, but we are able to capture all the unanswered questions from you, and we will certainly do so and respond as needed to the ones that we have not answered so far tonight. The other thing is I would like the Commissioner Baker and Brian to just sort of recap next steps, and we can talk about where we go from here, and then we will sign off after that. So Commissioner Baker, why don't you tell us what's next on your list for the Box Elder situation and the role?
Sure, I definitely can. Thank you, Luke. You know, this has been great hearing all of the different comments and questions, and you can infer certain things from the questions. And what I'm inferring is that the option of taking this back to gravel is probably a non-starter. And we're definitely going to respond back to the other county commissioners with the information that we've gathered in this forum. So I want to say thank you to everyone that submitted questions. And again, we'll try to answer any other questions that we didn't get to. Time, we again overextended in order to try to address as many of these questions as possible. But we're going to, I'm assuming that Brian will and Alan will kind of organize all of this input from our citizens into some kind of a presentation to the whole Board of County Commissioners, my 4 colleagues. And they all know we're meeting tonight, where they all are aware that this issue has been publicized and has become quite a topic. I do want to thank again, I think there have been like 24, 26 participants on the line here. Very good turnout for these types of meetings. So we're going to look at the information, digest it, and I can guarantee you that we will communicate back to everyone who has maybe submitted their email or a phone number. We will make sure everyone's aware of any decision that's made from this point forward. We can also use the media possibly to get that information out. So thank you again for everybody participating tonight.
And Brian, what the commissioner said about compiling all the information, we also have information that we were sent in separate questions. There's just a lot of stuff we need to put together to present it to the whole board. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So we do have questions that residents had provided prior to this meeting, and even last week that I believe we responded to all of them, but we'll be responding to those questions that we received, plus the questions that we received tonight. I would also ask that of those alternatives that we shared with you, you know, I'd like to hear what the community thinks of those. So when you're communicating back with us, tell us what your thoughts are. I think we've heard loud and clear that, as Commissioner Baker indicated, that the Arapahoe is not something that people are very interested in. I think you used the term non-starter, so I think that's it. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on the others, which is that modified rotopave alternative that we came up that is directly addressing feedback that we received of, hey, keep us something that we have already. Rotopave worked well. Let us use or continue with that. And those areas that we talked about where there might be pavement already, and if it's in good condition, why tear anything up? And so I think Alan talked about that. So we'll summarize that information. We'll put that together for the board, schedule a study session for them. I think the board is scheduled out right now into September, so we'll try to get on the docket as soon as we can. We'll complete some of our geotechnical testing. We'll do further evaluation of costs of the alternatives and complete some of the life cycle maintenance cost evaluations of the various alternatives. All of that goes into information when we start making decisions and our data points that we use. And so that's how we'll move forward from a data-driven decision-making process.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to all of our hosts, and thanks to all of you for joining us. If you, like I said, we will capture the questions that have not been answered yet tonight. And if you still have questions, feel free to send us an email to communicationservices@arapahogov.com, and we will make sure that your question gets to the right people. Whether it's a study session or another public meeting, there will be plenty of opportunity for more public comment. And as we mentioned at the top of the call, nothing is going to happen until 2022 because of our budgetary situation. So please keep communicating with us, and we will respond in kind. And we really appreciate you joining us tonight. So thanks very much.